There's a lot of misconceptions about what this knot can and cannot do. We're gonna go through that little eye right there and boom. I'm just gonna wrap around here 4 or 5 times. It's been my favorite leader to leader knot. What is up, MFers? It's been too long since I've sat down and done a tip video, but I think now is the absolute perfect time. As you guys know, with the pandemic, people were laid off, people had to stay home and stuff, and so many people got into the sport of fishing, which I think is absolutely amazing. Something that we all need to know as you get into fishing and as you get more advanced in fishing is how to properly tie a knot. Knots are very, very overlooked on their importance when it basically just comes down to getting that fish and that trophy fish in the boat or on the bank to take that picture for you to go post on social media. So in today's video, I'm gonna show you guys 4 different knots that I think all fishermen must know. Whether you're a bass fisherman, a cat fisherman, a pan fisherman, whether you just wanna know how to connect leader knots, braid to fluorocarbon, stuff like that, everything I show you is gonna help you guys out here. I did a video with this like 3-4 years ago, I think, where I showed you guys my favorite knots. A lot's changed since then. I fish every single day. These are the knots day in, day out I use, and I trust on the water to catch those big fish, and I think they're gonna help you guys out as well. Let's dive into it. All right, guys, first knot we're gonna tie today is my connection knot directly to the hook that I have been tying exclusively for about the last 8 months. Originally, when I did this video to start, I was tying the improved clinch knot. It's something that I grew up with. I've been tying it a ton, and if you tie it properly, it is a very strong knot. The problem with that knot is, with the improved clinch knot that is, it actually can cut into itself. So that knot, every time you break your line, unless you have a major nick in the line, is gonna break right there at the knot. First knot we're gonna tie today is the double clinch knot. This knot is extremely strong. It's a big knot, which some guys might not like, but honestly, I don't really have a problem with the size of my knot. If a fish is looking at your bait or your hook, which is anywhere from a 1/0 to an 8/0 size hook, bass fishing anyways, they're not gonna have a problem with your knot being a fraction of a millimeter larger than a smaller knot. A lot of guys like a Palomar knot for this technique. That's actually what Cole throws. That's what Zark throws. That's what a lot of guys throw. This is just a comfort thing for me. In my opinion, it's as strong or stronger than the Palomar knot. And I've seen several pros use this knot as well. I know Gerald Swindle ties this knot exclusively for his direct to bait connections as well. So I'm gonna use this rope right here, this bigger string rope, to tie all of these knots today to show you guys on a larger scale so you can see the knot easier. And then we're probably gonna go back and tie them with some smaller fluorocarbon or braid like I would be using in the field. So what I'm gonna do with this double clinch knot, it's a very, very simple knot to tie. You're gonna double your line over. So you're gonna have, I take like 4 to 6 inches of line. It's better to have more than not enough, especially when you get started. So we'll start with about 6 inches of line, simply double it over. You're gonna go through the eye right here, and you're gonna come back out, and it's just gonna be doubled over like so. Very simple. I would take my thumb and my pointer finger right there, and I put it right in that gap. And then I take these back 2, and it looks confusing. It's really simple, actually. I'm just gonna wrap around here 4 or 5 times. Like that right there. And then you have one very, very simple step left. You're gonna take this guy, this loop, and just like a clinch knot, you're gonna put it back through that bottom loop. Now, when you tighten this, it's important to wet the knot. I obviously don't need to wet the rope. We'll show you in just a second, but I grab with my pointer finger and my thumb, I grab this big loop, this tag that you just put through there, and I grab the other tag, the original tag in the original main line, and I pull both of them along with the bait apart from each other. And with this bigger rope and on this big loop, most important is to pull on the main line in the main tag. So there you go. That's your knot. The great thing about this knot is I use it for little tiny line, 4, 6, 8 pound test line directly to a connection. I also use it for 25-pound line, 30-pound line when I'm connecting it to a big swim bait, when I'm flipping, stuff like that. It works equally as well for all those types of line. You can use it for braid, mono, fluoro. It does not matter. It's a very, very strong knot. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of, it's a big knot because you double over the entire thing with 2 lines, and you have 3 tag ends. You have the original tag, which we will chop off, and then you got this loop guy right here, which again, you need to chop. This knot will not move much on its own. Some knots, it's important to leave a little bit of a tag in case it needs to tighten down even more. This one, I haven't noticed it. If you get it cinched down properly, it's not gonna do much. So you can trim it about as close as possible. But again, I don't have a problem with even having a 1-inch tag line because I truly don't think it affects how many fish you're going to get to bite or catch. So really quick, let me show you the double clinch knot tied. This is still 30-pound big game line, so it is very, very large line, bigger diameter than you'd usually need. But for the purpose of this video is showing you the line. I want you to be able to see everything. So again, double it over. I have like a foot here. Doesn't matter. We're just going to chop that off. I like to do 4 to 6 inches, like I said, because that way you're not being too wasteful. Put it through the eye, pull it out about 3 or 4 inches, pointer finger and thumb right there. We're going to loop it 3, 4, 5 times. That's perfect. Back through the main line, main gap that is, and then we're going to pull it down and make sure it lays down evenly. Saliva helps with every single one of these knots, and we're going to tighten it down like so. When you guys are watching all these videos of me fishing offshore and I'm feeling a bite and I'm winding up with a 7.5 foot rod and freaking jacking them or ripping them out of a dock, this is the knot that's holding up to those explosive hook sets every time. But yeah, this is a very, very strong knot. I'm going to try to do this without hooking myself. That would be fun. That guy's not going to break. You can see little tag guys, not going to hurt anything. Very, very, very strong knot. Okay, next knot. This is one I use exclusively for my drop shot technique. And once again, this is like the most popular knot of all time. For a direct to a bait connection, this is one that I use for a drop shot, just a personal preference, but it is very necessary to use it for a drop shot. So again, on a very large scale, we're going to use this big loop, and then I'll show you how the fundamentals of this knot works with a drop shot hook, which is going to be important at the end. So we're going to take about, I usually like about a 12 to 14 inch leader. I'll probably say 8 to 14 inch leader with my drop shot. So you want at least that plus a couple inches left over down below. So we're just going to double it over very simply right through the hook eye like so. So that's how you start off, just like the double clinch, except you're going to have a much longer tag end. And then this is one of the very easiest knots you can possibly tie. That's probably why Cole likes it. It's easy for his little brain. But you just double over like that, and you're just going to do one overhand knot. Boom, like that. You don't want to cinch this down all the way, but you want to cinch it down just to the point where, you know, you can see the knot coming together like that, I guess. And then you're going to take this loop right here, go back over the hook. You're going to wet it with some saliva. Boom. And then you should be able to pull the whole thing tight by pulling on the tag end of the line. So boom, you have a pretty strong knot. Now this part is extremely important for drop shotting exclusively. If you're tying it directly to your hook, you're done. That's it. You pull it as tight as you can, you lick it, you cut off that tag end, you're good to go. But with the drop shot, what you want to do is you want to have your hook point facing up. And then you're going to take your tag end and you're going to go through the top loop of the drop shot, just like so. And the reason for that is you want your bait to hang perfectly horizontally in the water column. It gives it the most action, it's the most natural, and most importantly, when that fish sucks that bait in, your hook point is going to drive straight into the top roof of their mouth. Let me show you on a little drop shot hook. It's going to make a little bit more sense and look a little bit better to you. Okay, so one more time again with a drop shot hook, I'll show you the mechanics of this line. So we're going to double our line over. Wow, I have way too much line out right there. I'm going to double it over. This is like 10-pound test fluorocarbon. So again, I usually drop shot with 8, sometimes 10. This is about the size we're looking for. Important to use a smaller diameter, even when trying to show you guys this, because these little drop shot hook eyes are very, very small. So we're going to double that over, and a lot of times that can be hard to get that little doubled over loop through the hook eyes. So you can actually take it, and I like to crimp it down. You obviously don't want to weaken your line. I've never had a problem doubling over line just in your fingers with weakening the line at any point. I think you're still safe there. We're going to double it over, and we're going to go through that little eye right there. Just like the other knot, the last one, we're going to pull it out about 4 inches, I would say. We're going to take our pointer finger and our thumb. So again, we're just making a simple overhand knot back through the main loop. Do you tie this part? Do you cinch it down? No. You get it to about there. A little bit less than that. A little bit less than that. Okay, so that's how Cole does it. And they're going to take this loop. Again, you're not completely tightened down with the overhand knot, and you're just simply going to go underneath the hook. You're going to pull it tight. You are done with your knot at this point. It's just going to be a little bit different with the drop shot like we talked about. Want to wet that knot. Make sure it's all bunched up at the very tip of the hook eye, straight on in line. And then like I said before, your main line is going to be up because you are going to be fishing it vertically, at least a little bit vertically. And in order to get your bait to hang perfectly straight, right now it looks like we have an okay knot, but as it kind of works its way around the hook eye, it's going to kind of get screwy and not sit just right. You're going to take your tag end and you're going to go right back through the top, down towards the bottom. You're going to clip your drop shot weight on down there. Okay, so there you go. You got your drop shot weight tied on. You have your hook hanging vertically like that. And then one more tip that Cole's friend Brock, that you've seen on the boat several times, he's a drop shot wizard, smallmouth fishing, finesse fishing guru. He likes to pull the Palomar knot actually through the entire hook eye. So you want to make sure you're not small enough to be able to do this, but if you pull it through like that, so it's on the underside of the hook, then look at that. Look how that hook hangs perfectly vertically. Your bait's going to weigh that hook down just a hair, and it's going to sit perfectly straight out, just like so, on your drop shot. Bingo! Okay, so the next knot is going to be a braid to fluorocarbon leader knot that I use on all of my spinning tackle. This is a knot that's a little bit tougher to tie, but in my opinion, it's one of the best that you possibly can tie. A lot of guys like the FG knot. That's a great, great knot as well. It's very, very small. It comes through the guides really well, but it's a total pain in the ass to tie. It's time consuming, and if you don't get it just right, you got to start over. And a lot of guys also like the uni to uni knot, the double uni knot. This is one that I used for my leader knots all growing up, and this is a very good knot as well, but it's a little bit bigger of a knot, so it's a lot harder to get through the guides a lot of times when you're fishing little tiny baits on spinning tackle, especially in wind. You need to cast them a long distance. This is a smaller knot. It's not as difficult to tie as the FG, and I love it. It is the crazy Alberto knot. So once again, we got heavy braid, we got heavy monofilament, just to show you guys really quick, and then we're gonna give it a little bit more of a life-size meaning. The great thing about this knot as well is you can tie it with two very different sizes of line. I know a lot of guys use this saltwater fishing. They'll tie like 30 or 50 pound braid to 80 to 120, 150 pound fluorocarbon leader for abrasion. Most leader to leader knots cannot handle that. It doesn't cinch down properly. This is a knot that will. So again, we have, I think this is 65 pound braid right here and 30 pound mono. So the 30 pound mono is much larger actually in diameter, but this knot should work very well. I've never even tied it on line this big before, but if you need to, if you want a good knot for flipping 65 pound braid to maybe a 25 pound fluorocarbon leader or something like that, this is probably the one you want to do, but for me, this is all of my spinning tackle has this knot right here. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take your fluorocarbon line, we'll call it fluoro, this is actually mono, but your fluorocarbon line, and you're going to double it over 6 to 8 inches down like so. You're just going to make a loop, and you're going to hold on to that with this hand right here. You're going to take your braid, and you're going to pull it through. Further is better to start. I generally, now that I've tied it a bunch, I like 4, 5, 6 inches, pulling it through this loop just like so. So at this point, you're going to change where you hold this knot. It's no longer important that you hold it right here super tight. You're going to hold it right where that braid goes through that loop. So you're going to pinch that so it can't go any further. None of these parties right here can move. And again, you're going to kind of crimp that over a little bit. Just hold it tight between your fingers. So you're going to use this hand, you're going to hold the fluorocarbon tight together like so. And you're going to start wrapping this braid up the line. I will generally wrap it about 8 times one way. I believe people say 8 to 9 times. That's about what I've been doing. So you're going to wrap it 8 or 9 times up the line, up both lines. You go around both the tag and the main line of the fluorocarbon. And that's when you're going to change where you hold this knot right here. You got your braid right here. You're going to pinch it down right where you did that last loop on your braid. And now you're going to hold it right there. It's no longer important that you hold it right here. So that's your knot so far. So you're going to hold your braid and both parts of your fluorocarbon leader between your fingers right here, your pointer and your thumb. And you're going to take this braid and you're going to wrap it back around the same number of times, 8 or 9 times, back towards this loop that you started with. And when you do that, you're going to try to wrap it in between. This isn't ultra important, but it'll cinch down better. But if you get it in between each of those loops that you wrapped on the way in, it's going to cinch down smaller and better. And I'm just gonna follow that all the way down. Again, this can be a little complicated at first, but it's actually a really easy knot to pick up. I even did with my little tiny brain after watching it like twice. All right, so then you get back to your leader, and this is kind of different than some of these leader knots. You're gonna go back through the same way that this braid goes through that monofilament or fluorocarbon generally. You're gonna go back through the same way as you originally went through. It looks like it goes top to bottom. We're gonna go back up one more time. And we're gonna go top to bottom, same direction. Boom. So that's what you're left with right there. You got two main lines, 2 tag ends. You're gonna grab all 4 of them and you're gonna cinch it down. You're just gonna pull on them nice and evenly. Make sure those wraps go down. And if there was, you guys kind of saw that there, I did it on my own in my head without explaining it, but there was some big braid loops kind of down here. So I pulled on that braid tag a little bit longer. Now we're back even again. And once you get it down to almost finished and all those loops and weaves are over the top of each other, you can grab your 2 main lines and you can pull it tight like so. So we're gonna trim these 2 tag lines as close to the knot as we possibly can. Once you have this knot cinched down, it's not going anywhere. Plus, this is gonna be a very castable small knot. That's the reason you tied this knot, so you don't want any extra line hanging out. But the good news about this one is it's not like the FG knot where it can come unraveled a little bit, and a lot of times you got to do some extra overhand knots. Once it's cinched, it's good to go. And there it is right there. That's been my favorite leader to leader knot. I don't think I've broken it. It's hard to even break this when you're snagged. It's a very, very good knot. Okay, so one more time we're gonna do this with some smaller line. We got 10-pound braid, 8-pound fluorocarbon leader right here, just like we're gonna have on the water. We're gonna take about 8 inches of this fluorocarbon. We're gonna double it over like so. We're gonna take about 6 inches of this braid. We're gonna go through that loop right there. Boom. We're gonna kind of cinch down this fluorocarbon so it kind of makes a little crimp in the line. You guys can't see any of that because my fat fingers are in the way. Like so. I'm gonna hold it right there. We're gonna get both of our fluorocarbon strands in this hand, and we're just gonna start wrapping that braid around both. And this is a little bit harder with smaller line. You guys will get better at it as you go, but it's harder to see exactly where those loops are going over that we need to go back over on the way back. But it will work. So we got our 8 or 9 loops going over on the way up. We're gonna change where we're holding the knot to right up here. Hold where that last braid goes over. And then we're gonna work our way back through those gaps. Boom. No need to hold it anymore at the end. And we're gonna find which direction that came through. And we're gonna go back through the same direction, back through the loop the same direction. And there we go. We got all 4 tags. We're gonna wet it. We're gonna pull them tight with all 4. Looks like shit. And then we're gonna grab our 2 main lines and completely tighten it. Looks pretty good. So once I trim these excess ends quick, I'll show you guys how small this knot is. All right, cool, let's test your camera work. See if you guys can see how small that is. So then something to keep in mind is when you're casting, you need this little part right here to have the least resistance. Obviously when you're reeling in, it's gonna be coming this direction. When you're casting, it's gonna be going out like that. And to me, that knot, right where that fluorocarbon meets the knot, is very, very small and concise and goes to the guide super well. Okay, and last but not least, we are going to show you the Snell knot. Now the Snell knot is one that I use almost exclusively for catfishing, and it works great for pan fishing as well. Anytime you have live bait, a direct to hook connection, that's when you want to use the Snell. Now let me tell you something that I missed the boat on. It's something that is a total fallacy. It's a myth when it comes to tying this. on a flipping hook. This is something that a lot of guys still do. It's something I used to believe until I actually thought about the mechanics of this knot. So first things first, let me show you how to tie it. I don't have anything that's actually gonna work because the problem with this loop right here is you have too much of an opening, and so that's not gonna work for this guy that we're gonna tie. So I'm gonna try to show you the best I can on an actual hook with this big old 30-pound monofilament, what I'm talking about. So real quick, let me tie you this knot and I'll show you what I'm talking about, how there's a lot of misconceptions about what this knot can and cannot do. So you're gonna take your line, you're gonna put it through the front side of this flipping hook. That's the important thing. You're gonna pull it through. I'd say you give yourself more line than knot once again. But once you get it through, you're gonna hold it tightly about mid-shank on that flipping hook, and you're gonna double back over. So you're gonna have this loop right here the entire time. Now there's a keeper on this guy that's kind of sneaky and kind of a pain in the ass. I'm gonna rip that keeper out right now just for the simple optics of this video. So we're gonna take our line and we're simply gonna go through, make 5 or 6 wraps around the hook and around the main line of this. And once you get this line right here, this is one reason I don't like to have too much line, is it's hard to get it back through there. You're gonna go back through this loop, and you don't want any of those loops to come unraveled around the top. And once you get done, you're gonna hold on to the hook, you're gonna hold on to the main line, you're gonna hold on to the tag, and this is kind of tough because of this rubber on here, but that will cinch down. We're gonna do this a couple times on a proper hook to show you what I'm talking about. That will cinch down against that welded hook eye. A welded hook eye is absolutely imperative for this. If you don't have a welded hook eye, or at least a very, very well closed one, it's just not gonna work. That's what you gotta have for the Snell. So boom, as you can see, this is a totally different knot, and it's what a lot of guys still use to flip for bass. So one benefit of this knot is I think it works better when you're fishing around a lot of heavy cover, when you're fishing around a lot of rock and stuff. And the reason I like it around catfish is they have really gnarly teeth. And so you have no knot right up here for them to drag their teeth on, for you to get chipped up and eventually come undone with when you're fishing for bass and heavy cover catfish. But the main reason guys like to do this, and why I got so popular with the flipping and the punching bunches, what I used to do is when you're using this tungsten weight on here, especially a big tungsten weight, this is only about 3/8, but it's what I had sitting around here. When that fish eats the bait and then you set the hook and the lips of that bass are closed around this big weight, that's the mechanics of this right here. So it shoots that hook point forward, right? So it shoots the entire hook forward like that. So when you set the hook and it shoots this guy forward just like that, the point doesn't go into the roof of the mouth or any of the hard spots in the mouth. The bend does. And so then when it's coming out of the mouth, as the bass has this, we'll say this is the top of the mouth, it just, instead of pulling straight through and straight up into the fish's mouth like it would on a direct knot above the hook, you're dragging it like this the whole way at the start of the hook set. And this is a process that takes, milliseconds. When you're pulling it up against that fish's roof of their mouth, it has to bend, it has to roll all the way around and then hopefully catch something on the way out. And when your hook point already has to roll that far in that process, and then, as you guys should know, it has to catch, once it straightens out, it has to catch on a piece of skin and get buried, which is probably gonna be to the front of the fish's mouth by then. It's just, you don't have your odds in your favor. So that's why I like just that simple double clinch knot we talked about at the beginning, which is gonna pull that hook perfectly straight. The fish's mouth is gonna be closed around it like so. It's gonna pull it directly up and into that fish's roof of their mouth, any hard spots in their mouth, just like that from the start. So that's when I don't use it, which is kind of a misconception in fishing. Maybe I'm wrong, you guys will have to comment down below, but I know Brandon Polnick's talked about that a few times on video as well, how there are a lot of misconceptions with a Snell knot, being that it would shoot forward and shoot the hook point into the fish's mouth. So here's a circle hook. A circle or a circle octopus hook is how I like to use this for catfishing. So once again, let me show you on this scale right here. This is how I like to use this knot. This is when I use this knot every single time. It works well for a bait holder hook too, for a small line if you're fishing for panfish or something like that. I generally still use the double clinch knot, but you can use that as well. This is what I like to use for the catfish. So we're gonna, once again, go through about 4 or 6 inches. You're gonna grab, you put your fingers on that side of the line, you're gonna hold it right there halfway down the shank of the hook to leave a loop. You're gonna come back up. You're gonna make 5 to 6 loops. They look kind of janky right now, but they'll double down. You're gonna take this line right here, the end of it, you're gonna go back through that first loop, like so. Gonna make sure your wraps don't go off the top of the hook eye there. Wet it a little bit. You're gonna hold that tag and the hook. You're gonna pull on your main line, and it's gonna cinch down there nice and pretty, like so. Cut it as close as you want to. Once it's cinched down, it's not going anywhere. And boom, you're ready to sling some titties. Chicken titties, that is. So those are my 4 knots I think everybody needs to know if you're serious about your fishing, and they're my 4 favorite knots to tie right now, whether you're connecting 2 lines or whether you're doing directly to a hook or something like this, or you're fishing for catfish, or if you want to throw a drop shot rig. You need to know all these knots to be more consistent with your fishing and your bass fishing especially. If you guys like these types of tip videos, please go drop a comment down below and hit the thumbs up button. I'd love to hit the subscribe button while you're at it, and I'll catch you guys very soon. I'm out of here.